In this week's CoinGeek Conversation, Dr. Craig Wright tells me how he set the Bitcoin software going, comments on its early website, and talks about how much people did or didn't know about his connection with Bitcoin at the time it was launched.
You're listening to CoinGeek Conversations with Charles Miller.
Well, Craig, it's very good of you to come back for a second week to discuss Bitcoin.
And as you wanted, I wore the same clothes.
Well, so did I. I thought, let's not shock people with new ties or anything like that. So I wanted to go back into history a bit. At the masterclass, you talked about 300 cryptos existing before Bitcoin and 30,000 attempts at digital cash invention.
No, I talked about 300 proof-of-work distributed cryptocurrencies. So cryptocurrencies, there are about 30,000 different ones that have existed since the 80s.
Where does that figure come from?
Actual numbers of attempts. So everything from micromint, paymint, crypto credits. There were literally thousands of the things.
Tens of thousands.
Just like there are now. So, I mean, if you look at it, there's something like 40,000 different blockchains now. But you'd be hard pressed to name most of them because 99% are just pump and dump scams that have no servers even.
And somebody has posted on Twitter a very early shot of the Bitcoin web. Is it the Bitcoin website? Or
it's the website, yes.
Yeah, it's a delightfully simple setup. No sort of logos or anything involved. But what are we looking at here exactly?
What we're looking at here is basically a picture of the early wallet and saying what Bitcoin is, saying that it's the alpha release, with a transaction being done between fictional Bob and Alice, and then an example by IP address where the order information is added in the message. Now, this demonstrates my lack of design skills, of course, because, well, my webpage design skills.
I like it.
It's very simple, I know, but I mean, I don't have all of the wasteful sort of, I don't know, CSV filing that has useless information and pop-ups anymore.
This transaction took place on the 3rd of January 2009. So what was sort of going on then?
First sort of launch of the code, making sure everything ran. First set of problems shortly after that week where it needed to be restarted and everything got totally mucked up. And
this transaction was just you sending it between your own computers to test the system, right?
Yeah. So looking at just a few machines connected and up. And the example there, 192.168.0.2, I think, is actually just one of the internal machines.
That's the IP address of one of your computers.
Yeah.
And that was all you needed. You just needed to have an IP address to send something to and to receive it from.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice if I'd actually fully integrated it so you had DNS names or something like email where you'd have a name at DNS name, like some of the other protocols like Finger and things would already do. But it is an alpha. So you can forgive me for not having everything perfect.
If we saw you making this transaction, what would your surroundings be? Was this when you'd be up in your farm?
Around that stage, I think probably would have been at my farm for that.
You'd left your job at BDO.
Yeah. A mess would be the best way to put it. Workshop desk going right around the room, computers, printers, more computers, screens everywhere. And me in the middle, so I could, with roller type chairs, so I could go back and forwards between the sites.
And was being able to make this work very, very exciting for you?
Having it actually run, yes, it was good. I mean, having it crash shortly afterwards wasn't. But
it was the fruit of many years of thinking and then technical work. I mean, it was a eureka moment in a way.
Yeah, I'd say that would be the way you could look at it. I mean, I had been working on trying to find a solution to micropayment problems since 1997. So, yeah, it was nice to finally have something that worked.
Did you, I mean, was there anybody you were celebrating with, or did you call your wife, or?
Well, I don't know if she was terribly happy at the time.
She wanted you to get a proper job.
Well, I had a proper job, and I took a golden handshake, and then I wasn't looking for a job. So, wives can be like, "Hi, honey, I've decided to do this project that, I've got stuff I want to do. What's it pay? Don't know.
Right.
Will it pay you? Don't know." Yeah, strangely enough, that's not a good selling point for a marriage.
Right.
But I really believe in it. I think it could be big. Yeah. Anyway.
One of the interesting things that you said was how Asimov's Foundation series of novels and the maths prof character in there, Dr. Harry Seldon, was, you said some of the ideas for blockchain came from that.
Well, keeping everything in an archive does. I mean, the psychohistory in Sheldon basically means everything gets recorded.
That was his sort of invented new science of psychohistory that was going to sort of record.
So analysing everything in there. The problem, of course, is if you can imagine thousands of known solar systems, and not even all directly connected anymore because of the distance between them, and 10,000 years plus since when Earth was now, that's a lot of recorded history. And if we think for a moment that probably 90% of Greek literature, Roman literature are lost, even some of the famous, like Plutarch, we don't have all of the works of Plutarch.
It's amazing how much classical literature there is, though, isn't it?
Oh, compared to what there was. I mean, there's a lot more. So we can think, great, we've got this stuff, but we also know about all the things we don't know about because of other people's writing.
But how did this feed into your ideas about Bitcoin?
Just the idea of keeping everything. I mean, I find it really interesting that people think that things will be open and either never accessible if they're encrypted or sort of not private if they're on a blockchain. But you have a combination, and you can have encrypted data. But even if you take, say, AES 256, it'll be broken eventually. But even without that, every 18 months, you effectively lose 1 qubit worth of information because of the doubling of computer power. So thinking about that, eventually it gets to the point where you can solve it. And if it gets to the 86 to 90 bits where we are now, it's solvable. So that means in about 100 years' time, AES will be solvable.
What does that mean then?
It means people can just decrypt all that information.
Right.
Now, is that a problem right now? No. But in 100 years' time, things that have been locked away now will be accessible again. So if you put everything there and you save everything and you have it encryptable, then that gives enough time, after I'm dead and buried, then it doesn't matter so much about aspects of my life that I don't talk about or things like this, or like children's photos and those sort of things. In the future, they might be valuable to someone. Historians love this stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, because that's such a big idea, kind of keeping everything. And then the whole idea of digital cash going between people seems to me like another really big idea. And these two things come together in Bitcoin. Was that the way you thought about it? Or
I had always had a lot of fights with people in the security industry because my foundations have always been part economist. And economics and security, people sit there going, oh, it's not secure enough. And my idea was, it doesn't need to be that secure. It needs to be more secure than everyone else. I mean, it's the old outrunning the bear bit. I don't need to outrun him. I need to outrun you.
But how does that relate to those two ideas then?
Well, Bitcoin's really a combination of both computer science and economics and game theory. And by having a background in all of these topics, of course, it makes it much easier.
Again, this is sort of part of history, but at the Graneth trial, you brought along several witnesses to talk about your conversations or their conversations with you in those very early days. And you also talked about assembling 70 to 100 witnesses, you say, of who will be able to talk about you working on Bitcoin in those very early days. Is that so? What is that project going ahead to assemble those people?
It is. Will I get enough that make me happy? No. But lawyers and court time, so we've only got a limited amount of court time, so I can't just roll in 1,000 people, and so we've got to select the best ones. We'll select people like my CFO and an accountant who goes back to 2008 and people like that. So
There were 30 people, I think at the most, working at De Morgan.
no, 50 something.
50, okay.
At the peak.
And that company existed specifically to exploit Bitcoin commercially. But so did you tell those people that you had invented it?
No, but I found out later that they all knew anyway. So I had a chat with Alan Peterson, who was my head of projects, and he, like I was saying, so you guys know that I'm Satoshi, and he went, well, yes. I went, so why didn't you talk to me about this earlier? And he went, well, we didn't think you wanted to. I went, really? He went, well, yes, obviously you wanted to be private, so we didn't tell. I went, but you talk about it yourselves. And I went, he went, yeah, but okay. So anyway.
But why didn't you tell them yourself?
I didn't think there was a reason.
Well, but if you were inviting them to take part in this business around Bitcoin, why should they not know that?
Why should they? I mean, the job.
Well, wouldn't it make it would just make sense of the whole project? Here's this thing that I've invented, and now we're going to go out and sell it and do things with
But
it.
I wasn't selling it. I wanted to scale it.
Well, all right,
I mean,
scale it.
so like the team Tripti and Olga and things and others working on iDemon. The idea was to do what now will come out with Terranode and take Bitcoin to scale to hundreds of thousands and then millions of transactions a second. And that is a task no matter who I am.
Right. But so when you discovered that they all knew, was it then discussed openly and people didn't have to worry about letting you know that they knew, kind of thing?
Yes, but it was still annoying that they had this whole little secret behind my back.
Are you going to have to go through all that again in September when there's going to be an appeal hearing, I think, in Oslo?
Yeah, so we'll go through it, but it'll be a bit more organized.
Same witnesses and all that?
No, we'll have more.
More?
We had very limited in the first one because for some reason, the first law firm that I had that I fired refused to put any witnesses on. So I had to end up firing them